Mahathir Mohamad, who led Malaysia for decades with dagger-sharp rhetoric and increasingly autocratic ways, is 92 and in frail health. But he wants his old job back. To do it, Mr. Mahathir, already one of the world's most durable political survivors, has engaged in yet another act of reinvention. This time, he is allying himself with opposition figures he once repressed in the name of beating his own former protégé, Najib Razak, whom he helped make Prime Minister in 2009. The man who defined much of Malaysia's political history is, in effect, standing before both the country as a whole and the new opposition allies he once persecuted and asking them to ignore the past. But he is certainly not apologizing. When it comes to the election, forget about everything and think only of winning, Mr. Mahathir said at a recent campaign rally in Penang. "I know I'm not popular with all the people," he said, continuing with a hint of sarcastic edge. "Remember, I am cruel or a pharaoh. That's all right. In politics, you get called all types of names." Mr. Mahathir is campaigning as the leader of the opposition coalition, Pakatan Harapan, and if he does rise to power again in parliamentary elections this year, he will become the oldest head of government in the world. But in vying for the post he left in 2003, when he was 78, Mr. Mahathir faces an uphill battle against Mr. Najib even though the Prime Minister stands accused of taking $731 million in government funds and depositing the money into his personal bank account. The incumbent has a formidable grip on power, plentiful campaign funding and the advantage of parliamentary district lines that are skewed in his favor, in part because of the political system Mr. Mahathir helped establish. Now, Mr. Mahathir is urging members of the opposition to put aside their past enmity and unite behind his leadership. "This time, we are together to replace the government," he said. "The government has been there for more than 60 years. It is time it goes." A doctor before entering politics, Mr. Mahathir remained sharp, and his memory of people and events is exceptional. But he has a history of heart problems, and his aides carefully limit his daily schedule to conserve his strength. At a rally in the industrial town of Perai, he took the podium just before 11 p.m. and spoke for nearly 30 minutes without notes to a standing room-only crowd of about 2,500 supporters. He was clear and forceful, despite coughing at times. In the 1990s, he was Mr. Mahathir's deputy prime minister and likely successor. But the two had a falling out, and Mr. Anwar was sent to prison by a court widely seen as carrying out Mr. Mahathir's wishes. Because of Mr. Anwar's most recent conviction, he is barred from holding elective office for 5 years after his release. The ban could be reversed with a royal pardon or a successful appeal. This month Mr. Anwar appeared in court on his latest appeal. In a brief interview as he stood surrounded by more than a dozen guards, he said he accepted Mr. Mahathir's candidacy because the former Prime Minister had embraced the goals of the opposition. "We are not supporting Mahathir as a person," he said. "We are supporting the reform agenda he has committed to." Thanks for watching. Subscribe our channel to get latest news update.